Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video, we are looking at Super Micro Computer. It is time for another update. And previously, on this chart, we have identified an initial 5-way move to the upside. So we have been expecting to seize an opportunity here, but we first needed to retrace into the white support zone. This has not happened and actually enables a couple of options for how we could be considering this chart, but this doesn't mean there aren't other opportunities still. In fact, I have an opportunity for you today that could be seized maybe even today. But before we get into all of those details, let's provide the context for this chart because it is still quite important. So previously, we have been tracking this orange scenario that would allow this correction to extend for quite a while longer. It isn't absolutely necessary, but I also cannot really trust a move up into new all-time high territories because we do not have the base to build such a structure with high confidence. So this is not to say that it cannot happen, but the confidence level isn't there because from the lows of this wave 4, we have only built 3 waves to the upside. This means that we would typically expect continuation to lower prices, although we could be extending to new all-time highs within a diagonal pattern. But the thing is, we've also seen a quite deep retracement in this move down, which is also making me quite a bit more skeptical of this potential. Nonetheless, within the smaller time frame, we have the orange interpretation for which we have been expecting to actually not retrace above the 78.6% retracement. So far, it's only a brief break, it's not a sustained break, so the wave B we have been tracking within this wave through to the downside has not invalidated such a structure. In fact, we are still considering the possibility of continuation to lower prices within this orange scenario. But we also have levels of support that we can currently track internally, because even though within this movement to the upside we haven't managed to build a more clear 1-2 setup, I have to consider that this would be an impulse currently in formation, and I do not consider it to be complete. No, I actually consider that we would need a few additional highs to have at least that structure complete. So let's go through our options here. Firstly, we have the possibility to track here a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, where within the wave 2 we simply haven't reached the levels of support. Still a perfectly valid scenario. Sometimes we do not reach them. It's rarely the case, but it does happen. And then the ideal target would be here $69.5 for the wave 3. In terms of a potential ABC pattern within this as a wave B, well, the ideal target is the 100% extension of the wave A. That would be $54.8, but it doesn't actually even need to get there. The 78.6% extension would have been enough. Then, again, within this idea of a wave 3, I need to be building an impulse in this structure. Then I come with the other option, which might make more sense in terms of retracements, because I would have reached the levels of support in all instances, and it would be tracking a larger diagonal pattern in this area, where this would have been an A, B, C structure within a wave 1. This would have been my wave 1 up, this would have been my wave 2 down, and now I would be tracking within this as a wave 3, an A, B, C structure. Nonetheless, even in this interpretation, I do prefer an impulse within the wave C. Considering how well this chart has actually held today, while the rest of the market has been dropping extremely strongly, and don't get me wrong, I realize this one dropped as well, but it is holding the levels of support I would have to consider for such an interpretation quite well, actually. So, regardless of which path I would be tracking currently to higher prices, I would have to prefer continuation directly higher, at least within this movement to the upside. And this today we will be tracking in yellow, where I would focus on this structure to actually be building at least 3 additional highs. For this interpretation and actually the idea of an impulse, we need to be holding here $43.5. If we get a sustained break below these levels, we have to be prepared for potentially a complete failure of this movement to the upside, potentially a top to already be in. But as it stands right now, I will repeat myself, I do prefer to continue to higher prices. So a wave C within the green interpretation would still be a possibility, but I wouldn't really trust that one. So we can go actually directly into the smaller time frame where we are looking to build here ideally a 3-wave pattern within this as a wave 4. And if I look, I can quite easily determine that I am tracking an A wave down here. This would have been a wave B within the idea of a triangle in my preferred count in this structure. And I'm now looking for a wave C to the downside. We seem to have found some structural support at this previous low where we have struggled to get past it. It has put a stop to this entire movement to the downside. But I'm not convinced at this point that the correction is complete. In fact, if I even go into the smaller time frame here, I would probably prefer to have here an internal 1-2 setup. Very difficult to see. Of course, this is within a very small time frame. But then this would be my wave 3, and I would have developed now potentially a wave 4 within the idea of a triangle. That might even be ideal. And all I really need at this point to consider this as an A, B, C pattern complete, in my opinion, is one additional low. That is all. At that point, we would have 3 waves down complete, and the correction within the wave 4 could be complete. And I say could because having a full count does not guarantee that the correction is complete, because extensions would always be possible, but it would have actually done everything that it needs to start looking once again for continuation to higher prices. So we are looking actually at a quite compelling trade setup here, because the levels of support that we know we need to hold for this structure to still manage to reverse to new highs within a wave 5 in yellow are the $43.5 level. Again, we do not want a sustained break below that, and as long as that is holding, we can prefer continuation to higher prices. And I will do you one better, because I am noticing some structural support we have within this entire region, down to the 38.2% retracement, which is the ideal target for the wave 4. And primarily, I would expect to bottom within this region before reversing within a wave 5. Unfortunately, there isn't much else to add, but on the other side, this should be good enough to give us a pretty good idea for our main expectations. I do not find it impossible to form a very small wave 5 within this structure. I am not here to predict how large this wave 5 to the downside will actually end up being. It could be quite sizable. I would consider even the 38.2% retracement to be a reasonable level to reach. I could see even other types of corrections, but this is the general idea. These are my main expectations for this structure. So for now, we will stop here. These are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoyed the content and want to support it directly, check out the channel membership, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.